Hello, welcome again to Benchwarmers. It is 4th of July week. Everybody indoor, outdoor, looking for something to do recreationally. And we've got another one for you, an activity called pickleball, joined by Larry Plucker from the Sioux Falls Pickleball Club. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thanks
First of all, there is a Sioux Falls Pickleball Club.
There is.
It is a fact. Tell us about it.
There is a fact, yep. We have 280 members. It's been around for about 8 years.
Okay.
And the club literally started with 4 people back in 2011.
Really?
That just made their own lines and brought their own net somewhere to a tennis court.
Gone from 4 to 280 members now, and we'll let you know how to get involved in that in a minute. But
yeah.
give us your elevator speech, your 30-second speech on what is pickleball.
Well, first off, I tell people to Google it, but really it's a combination of tennis, racquetball, ping pong, and badminton. It's played on a court that's only 20 feet wide by 44 feet long, and more often than not, it's doubles. So what people like about it, first off, it's very easy to learn. We have a lot of former tennis players, a lot of former racquetball players. They like it because they're covering much less of a court. It's easier on their body. It's actually taught in elementary school, middle school, again in high school. And when I say taught, it's not really taught, it's just kind of introduced. So just banging it around. It's also being, there you go.
Yeah, this is a tournament you guys had just a couple of weeks ago at Riverdale Park in Sioux Falls.
Yep.
And this is what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's called Pickleball in the Park. It's the 4th annual, I believe. We had 81 players, which is the largest event we've ever had. There were 105 games that included men's doubles, women's doubles, and mixed doubles, and it was a riot.
And we do see some younger people out there. There's maybe a slant toward the older player, the older demographic, just because it's easy on your body to play this. Is that right?
Well, it's easier on your body, and it's very popular in Florida, Arizona, California, where all the snowbirds go.
Yeah.
There's literally communities there that just play pickleball. They might have 100 pickleball courts in their facility, and that's all they do.
You talked about Riverdale there, that you can go to Great Life at Wood Lake, I think, in Sioux Falls. There are other places to go play.
Yep.
And you can go to a tennis court and just play this and modify the tennis court a little bit. Can you do that or not?
That's not real pickleball. You sure could do it.
Okay.
But again, the net is different, the court is different, so we don't want to change the game.
You're dedicated. I mean, that's where the dedication is. This is not. It's not a sport like golf or tennis that is kind of recognized as a sport, but it's not just a recreational sport. It can be recreational, but it can be very competitive.
Yes, right? Yes. There's U.S. Open. There's the Nationals. It's actually been in conversations about becoming a possible Olympic sport. Okay. Again, there's almost 4 million people in the United States that play it. There's an international federation, so it's played worldwide. It's bigger than people realize.
There are sports bars that are dedicated just to pickleball now.
Just to pickleball, yeah. One in Des Moines and one in Wichita and one in Kansas City. You
brought some equipment here. You need a net. You need a court, like you said. But this is what you need right here. It's a wiffle ball.
It's a wiffle ball. You can actually get online on a variety of websites and buy a portable net, buy a couple paddles, buy some balls, and set it up in your driveway, set it up in a parking lot. You can buy temporary lines. You could go to a tennis court and simply chalk out the dimensions of a pickleball court. And to start with, you could use the tennis net, and then when you get really into it and realize it's not intended to play on a tennis court, you'd play on a real pickleball court, okay. You'd like it better, and you'd get better at the game.
All right, we're going to have a little demonstration, I think.
Okay, hold on.
Some of our guys, what?
Has everybody signed the waivers?
We'll do that. Do we need to do that? All right, we're going to get a little demonstration. I love the sound of the ball coming off, that little thing right there. Mm-hmm. What equipment you need, what the rules are, why you got to stay out of the kitchen for the most part. And we'll talk a little bit more about pickleball with Larry Plucker when we come back.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers, talking pickleball with Larry Plucker, the president of the Sioux Falls Pickleball Club. And we're going to do a demonstration here. We're joined by Alex Heinert, an accomplished tennis player who's over there in the USA jacket. And Larry, just kind of take us through the basic rules and how you should be playing this game.
Okay, the court is 20 feet wide by 44 feet long. It looks pretty much like a tennis court, with the exception of there's an area that's 7 feet on either side of the net. That's called the kitchen or the non-volley zone. The game is started with the serving team both at the baseline, serving cross court just like in tennis. There's something called the 2-bounce rule, which means if I'm the serving team, it has to bounce once before the other team can hit it. And they hit it back to our side, it has to bounce once before we can volley it. So after it bounces once on each side, then you can hit a volley, except when you're standing in the kitchen, you cannot hit the volley.
The kitchen line is 7 feet back from the net. We've got our makeshift net there, but 7 feet from the net is the kitchen, the no volley zone.
Right. You can be standing in the kitchen and hit the ball all day long, as long as it bounces first.
Okay.
So if you were doing that, you'd want to hit it, then get out of the kitchen to get ready for the next shot. If you just stand in the kitchen, they're just going to slam it at you.
All right, but it's much more about control than it is about speed and aggression with the swing. You say a lot of tennis players come in and have that big swing. That's not what you need in this.
Right. Really, the best advice I ever got had nothing to do with the skill. It was somebody simply said, ratchet it down and have patience. And that made total sense, because I was that former tennis guy that was just going to show up these old pickleballers by hitting it hard and chasing down everything, but it came to realize they were just toying with me, and then they ultimately put it away whenever they wanted to.
So whether it's singles or doubles, you're going to get a lot of this with the volley, under control, and then eventually, how are you going to score?
Slow it down a little bit, yeah. So again, the goal is after that second shot, after the serving team hits it and then it's returned, best case scenario is everybody's up at the kitchen, all 4 of them, and we're dinking over the net, and ultimately somebody's going to mess up and put the ball away.
Okay.
Now, what you can't do when you do that shot is fall into the kitchen, even after the ball, even after you got the point. I can't touch my paddle, my hat can't fall off. Yeah, I can't go into the kitchen at all. The good news is my partner can reach over and pull me back. Well, how about that? Yeah.
And you see more doubles than singles. For what reason?
Well, it's an easier game.
Okay.
For young people, old people, new people, or even professionals. So.
Okay. Go ahead. I like the sound, and I want to see if Alex can score on you here.
Yeah. Score? Okay. Well, he's giving me a lot of ones that would just slam at him.
So if he brings it back to you high like that, that's your opportunity to hammer it.
Another big difference between this paddle and a tennis racket is the ball isn't going to bounce off of it. You literally have to, you want to lift it off. Lift the ball off the paddle, which again helps you put the ball where you want it to be. And another part of the game as you get better is seeing where the hole is, where your opponents are, so you can put it where they're not.
And this is for any level, like you were saying before. But there are professional players.
Yes.
Are there any around here?
Yes.
There are players in pickleball that are rated high enough where they go to professional pickleball tournaments.
Yep, the ratings are the same as in tennis, starting in a 2.0 as a novice and a 5.0 as a pro. We have one pro we'll call Jordan Hanisch is his name, and he's actually sponsored by one of the companies that make paddles.
Okay.
He's not making a lot of money, but he's making some money.
All right. One more volley here, and tell us how you can join the Sioux Falls Pickleball Club.
Okay. Right now we just have a Facebook page, which is Sioux Falls Pickleball Club, South Dakota. It's a closed group right now. All you have to do is ask to join. If you pass the background check, I'm kidding. We let pretty much anybody in, and we're in the process of changing it to open anyway, and developing a website. We've just secured a large indoor tournament at the Pentagon coming up in October, which will be huge for our pickleball club and pickleball in general for the Sioux Falls area.
Outside of Sioux Falls, are there opportunities? Huron, Mitchell, Watertown, anywhere, North Dakota, anywhere else?
All over the place. The pickleball club itself here has members from Flandreau, Lennox, T, Brandon, Corson, Sioux City. Closest places to play big tournaments are the Minneapolis area and Des Moines.
All right. Sioux Falls Pickleball Club. Larry Plucker. Check it out. You can take it out online. Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Larry Plucker.
And then at the end of the game, we go to the net.
When we come back, another little off-the-radar sport that's trying to get on the radar. We're going to talk about lacrosse coming up next on Benchwarmers. Welcome back to Benchwarmers. From pickleball to lacrosse, joined by Corey Mitchell with Sioux Falls Lacrosse. And let's talk about what this sport is. And does anybody know about lacrosse in Sioux Falls? This is a thing. There is a Sioux Falls Lacrosse Club. Started, 4 or 5 years ago, and you're getting things going. That's kind of your mission right now, is to get the word out.
Right. We started lacrosse in 2014 in Sioux Falls with 76 kids, and we've steadily grown and improved our program every year. We started a league in 2016. And so we have a travel league between North and South Dakota. We have an in-house rec program, and we're really just trying to grow the sport here in Sioux Falls.
You have a hockey background, is that right? Is that kind of where this started a little bit?
It is. I played hockey my entire life, and I always wanted to play lacrosse as a kid, but it was never an option. So when I saw this, when I left my corporate job to do some hockey training, this was one of the options we did for hockey players to get better off the ice. And it really just kind of grew its own life. It's an awesome sport in and of itself.
A lot of elements similar between hockey and lacrosse, you were saying.
I would say lacrosse is the ultimate cross-training sport for a lot of sports. It's got a lot of the teamwork and stick skills of hockey players. It has a lot of the footwork and pick and rolls that basketball players have. A lot of the field is the same size as soccer, so there's a lot of running and conditioning. Football, there's a lot of contact with it, and it's just it's one of the best sports that you can play when you're not playing the primary sport.
Well, I think this is some high school stuff from Grand Forks, and you talked about how it's growing in North Dakota and South Dakota, but there is actually a high school league for the Dakotas right now, right?
Right. It's not a high school sanctioned league.
Right,
we have club teams in 8 cities in North and South Dakota that we play in.
Play in May and June. I think they just finished up the schedule, but
yep. Our state tournament was June 16th in Aberdeen, June 14th to the 16th in Aberdeen, and we had about 6 weeks of game play. The weather this spring made it tough to get games in, but we got them all in.
All right, what is the Sioux Falls Spark? You can go look up Sioux Falls Spark and find out more about lacrosse in Sioux Falls and other training opportunities, things like that.
Yeah, Sioux Falls Spark is our official name. It's SiouxFallsLacrosse.com. We have programs for kids who want to be competitive and travel and try to get to the next level. We have in-house programs for kids who just want to try it out, some recreational stuff. And one of our players who started with us in 2014 is playing lacrosse at Colorado State University this year. Okay. So we really try to develop every athlete where they're at and get them to where they want to go.
It's huge in college, on the East Coast for the most part. It's got those East Coast origins, but Virginia won the men's championship. Maryland, those East Coast teams won the women's championship this year. But it's huge at the college level, at that level, but it's getting here finally, right?
It's moving west. It's really blown up on the West Coast as well. Okay. And so getting into Denver won it a few years ago in the college men's game, and it's making its way into the center of the country. So I think South Dakota was the 50th state to get lacrosse.
Really? All right. And Minnesota's got an actual sanctioned high school league for lacrosse. You said Nebraska's got kind of a club thing, but nothing in South Dakota yet. And maybe it's a big climb to get there to get sanctioned as a high school sport, but maybe more high school kids playing in the future. Huh?
Yeah, we really just need more players at every school to be a little more density to get sanctioning going.
All right. So when we come back and talk about these things, how this sport works, a little more on lacrosse with Corey Mitchell when we come back.
Benchwarmers on Midco Sports Network is presented by Avera Orthopedics.
Welcome back to Benchwarmers, talking lacrosse with Corey Mitchell from Sioux Falls Lacrosse. And let's talk about some of the equipment that you brought in here. And this is obviously just for lacrosse. The ball is a rubber ball. Yeah. It's a hard rubber ball, but
yeah, it's kind of like a big giant super ball. It's about 5 ounces. And that thing can get zipping pretty fast.
Yeah, all right. This is a cross or a stick or what?
The technical term is a cross, but people will call it a stick, generally with the head and the shaft and the mesh or the pocket.
And you've got the scoop, a nice little scoop to pick it up off the ground, if so be.
Yep, possession's the number one game on lacrosse, number one skill in lacrosse, and ground balls are huge. So if the ball's on the ground, you got to pick it up to get it for your team.
Okay. The pocket is deep enough to catch the ball when it's being passed around, but it can't be too deep because you got to release it, right?
Right. I mean, if the pocket is too deep and the ball sits below the sidewall, then it's illegal, and it can cause a definite advantage if it is too deep. So having the right kind of the stick strung the right way makes a huge difference. You'll see kids who buy just a factory stick off the shelf, and sometimes they aren't strung properly, and they can't figure out why they can't learn this game. And it really comes down to the way the pocket is shaped in their stick and what it does for them.
You can do that to your own specifications.
Yeah, absolutely. Every player has a different throwing style and some strengths and weaknesses, and we can really string sticks to accommodate anybody.
All right. If you want to get involved, if you want to go watch a game, what can you do in Sioux Falls?
The best place to do is follow us on social media. Our Sioux Falls Lacrosse on Facebook, Instagram is Sioux Falls Lax, and Twitter is Sioux Falls Lax. And our website is SiouxFallsLacrosse.com. We have some summer box lacrosse going on right now, and we have just some summer training. But our next games would be probably in the springtime with our league play, and we'll have some recreational stuff in the fall.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
a lot. Sioux Falls Lacrosse with Corey. Welcome back to Benchwarmers, joined by our high school sports guy here at Midco Sports Network, Jason and Dara, and huge football news in the last week with a South Dakota kid committing to the University of Nebraska. First of all, let's get his name right. His name is Nash
Hutmaker.
From Chamberlain High School.
From Chamberlain, and if you follow high school sports at all, whether it's track and field or wrestling or football, you've heard of Nash Hutmaker. He's been making waves since he was a freshman. He's now going to be a senior.
He's called the Polar Bear, and there's good reason why. You went out to Chamberlain. This was, I think, a summer ago, right? But and watched a little lifting session with the Polar Bear.
The Polar Bear, super blonde hair, as you can see, and he kind of looks like a polar bear with that frame that he's got. He just started doing 42-inch box jumps with the plate. This was only 36 inches, I believe. So he's gotten even stronger. About 6'5", 305 right now. And just a beast, and he really uses his sports mixing well, because he uses this is the pull that he does that a lot of football players don't do, as a lot of that pulling strength that he gets from wrestling that really helps him get leverage on the line.
Yeah, he is a freaky athlete, not just a big, strong guy, but he's a great athlete. And as you said, he's in track and field, state champion wrestler. I mean, he's one of the best wrestlers probably in the country as a heavyweight.
He's number one. He's the number one wrestler rated right now by Flow Wrestling at the 285 mark, which it's hard for him to get down to 285 during the summer when he's at 305. But unbelievable wrestler. Can you imagine being so good at one sport and that's not your main sport as you go into college?
But decides on University of Nebraska to play football. Why? First of all, why football instead of wrestling?
Well, he was really torn the last couple summers that I talked to him. What do I want to do with my life? His dad really loved wrestling. He really loved both sports, but he thinks there's more of a future for him, potentially at that next level to go on and play at the football rather than wrestling. It's pretty select few people who make it professionally at the wrestling level, although he's in that group. He thinks his chances might be a little bit better in football. And look at this one where he runs somebody down from behind. The speed is definitely there. He kind of looks like the fridge there at number 72 and just runs people down.
Yeah, this is some of his huddle stuff that's online, and they spotlighted him there, but you really don't have to because of the way he stands out, and he wants to be a defensive lineman at Nebraska.
A defensive lineman at Nebraska. He had narrowed it down to 3 colleges this summer. We thought either Oregon, Wisconsin, or Nebraska were the really major finalists. He said it was kind of Nebraska, and then his defensive line coach left to go to the New York Giants. And for a moment he wavered and thought maybe it's not Nebraska, but then they hired a new defensive line coach, Coach Tony Tuietti, Coach T he calls him, and he says he really sealed the deal and made him feel even more that comfortable at Lincoln, and he just loves it.
And they are going nuts in Lincoln because of getting this kid. This was a big deal, right?
Exactly. It's like getting an in-state recruit for Nebraska. They pretty much count South Dakotans as in-state recruits. When they really want somebody from South Dakota, Nebraska's pretty much undefeated in getting those people. They really wanted Nebraska's Nate Gary. They really wanted the Farniaks. They really wanted Vedro back in the day, and now they really wanted Nash. And they put out, the welcome mat, the red carpet, and everything, and convinced him to go Big Red.
And you talked to Nash. You're going to have a podcast coming out with him in the next couple of weeks here.
Yep.
And the great story about his recruiting was he made this commitment, and then he went fishing. I think with his dad was the story on that. He's kind of a South Dakota hunting and fishing kind of guy.
And he said that. Even Wisconsin, he said, the terrain's just a little bit different. Oregon, obviously much different. He said, you went to Lincoln, and you kind of felt like you're still at home in South Dakota. And I think that was really important for him. It's going to be weird for him, though. He's so used to being so busy all year round with these different sports. For him to narrow in on one sport, I think he's going to make even more of an explosion once he really focuses in on football.
And play right away? Does he know yet? Is he thinking that or not?
They told him what they tell all incoming recruits is, come here, work your butt off, and we'll see what happes.
Yeah, but it would be a big deal to start as a freshman.
Especially for a lineman. I mean, the Farniaks I talked to, when they went down, they said, no, we're going to redshirt pretty much every offensive lineman we have. But Nash may be the exception because he is so ready-made to play FBS football.
All right, the Polar Bear heading to Nebraska. It'll be fun. You're going to keep track of him, and the podcast will come out
next Monday. You'll check out the podcast. Yeah, we had a great conversation just about wrestling, what he's still trying to accomplish in wrestling. He wants to win the Triple Crown at the national tournament coming up later in July in Fargo, which is Greco-Roman and the two other heads. I don't have them off the top of my head, but he is going to try to be the national champion in 3 different things in wrestling. That's amazing that he's the best wrestler in the nation and yet chose football.
And then go be a big deal on the football field for the Huskers and the black shirts there. All right, thanks a lot, Jason and Dara. We'll see you back in a couple of weeks on Benchwarmers.